On June 23, 22, a guy named Alex died of cancer. He was 23. He recorded a farewell video, 8 minutes long, where his voice sounded calm, almost cheerful. His last words, "So long, nerds." Goodbye, nerds. 90 million people watched that video. Millions cried. One comment got 300,000 likes. "I've never met him. Why does this hurt so much?" Here's the paradox. You grieve for someone who never knew your name. Your friends don't get it. He's just a blogger. You feel guilty yourself. Am I overreacting? Is this fake grief? But the pain is real. The insomnia is real. The emptiness, where his voice used to fill your headphones, it's real. This is called parasocial grief. And here's what's fascinating. Scientists at the University of California in Tijuana did MRIs on people watching their favorite streamers. The result? The same brain areas lit up, the medial prefrontal cortex, as when talking to a real friend. To your neurons, there's no difference between he's talking to me and he's talking to the camera. Your brain literally can't tell the screen from reality. But here's a question that breaks all the logic. If your brain doesn't distinguish between a friend and a blogger, maybe the problem isn't you? Maybe the problem is how our version of friendship is built in the 21st century. And maybe we should figure out why evolution didn't prepare us for Instagram. Evolution geared us for 150 people. That's Dunbar's number. The maximum social connections the Homo sapiens brain can handle. 150 faces, 150 names, 150 stories. We evolved in tribes where everyone knew everyone, where the chief ate from the same pot as you, where the shaman remembered your kids' names. Now you know thousands of faces, but one-sidedly. You know the blogger moved to a new apartment, that he has sleep issues, that he loves coffee with cinnamon. He doesn't know you exist. And here's the paradox. Your brain is overloaded. It's trying to process a stream of strangers like a tribe. But the tribe doesn't respond. Robin Dunbar, the author of this theory, says we're not adapted for one-sided ties to thousands of screen faces. The result? Social overload. You feel surrounded by people and utterly alone, but there's more. Social monitoring theory, and it explains why you can't stop checking what your favorite YouTuber posted. In tribes, survivors were the ones who tracked the chief. If the alpha male was nervous, danger. If the shaman smiled, everything's fine. We still instinctively monitor leaders. Only now it's not a chief with a spear. It's a blogger with 1 million subscribers. You follow his life not out of curiosity. You follow from an ancient instinct. If the alpha's okay, the tribe's safe. And then the skeptic shows up. This is infantile, he says. Adults should distinguish screen from reality. Fine. Then explain this. 2014. Actor Robin Williams dies. Calls to the U.S. psychological hotline spike 32%. People describe loss symptoms, insomnia, obsessive thoughts, emptiness. Clinically, identical to grief over a real friend. Their brains don't differentiate "I lost an acquaintance" from "I lost someone on screen." Emotions don't know the difference between real and perceived. Your brain isn't a rational machine. It reacts to patterns, to voices, to tone, to the illusion of closeness. And if the pattern says this is a friend, it triggers grief when the friend vanishes. But where did this illusion come from? Who first noticed radio could replace a neighbor? And why does it still work? 1956. Two psychologists, Donald Horton and Richard Wohl, are in a lab listening to the radio. Actually, they're listening to people listening to the radio. And they notice something odd. Women write letters to DJs, share secrets, ask for advice, like to an old friend, cry when their favorite show ends, describe it as loss, as breakup, as betrayal. Horton and Wohl coined the term parasocial interaction. They describe a simple, eerily accurate mechanism. The medium creates an illusion of reciprocity through intimacy. The host says into the mic, "Hi, how are you?" And the listener's brain hears a personal address, not to the audience, to you. This isn't deception, it's media architecture. Radio speaks in your voice, in your head. It seeps into the kitchen, the bedroom, moments of solitude. It fills the silence. And the brain does what it does best, completes the pattern. Voice plus regularity plus illusion of address equals friend. Horton and Wohl couldn't foresee TikTok, but they described the foundation. Because technology evolved, the focus stayed the same. Radio became TV. TV became YouTube. YouTube became TikTok. Each step amplified the illusion of closeness. TV showed faces. YouTube added comments. You write, the blogger replies. The brain notes, he noticed me. TikTok took it to the extreme. The blogger films a vlog from bed, whispers to the camera, says, "I'm tired, I'm down, but you're the only ones I can tell this to." This isn't content. It's simulated intimacy. And it works because the brain didn't evolve to verify emotional authenticity. It evolved for tribal survival. And in a tribe, if someone shares weakness, it's a sign of trust. You watch a streamer crying on camera, and your medial prefrontal cortex activates just like when comforting a real friend. You want to help. You type in chat. You donate. Not because you're naive, because you're human. But here's a question. Horton and Wohl didn't get to ask. If the illusion is that convincing, if the brain can't tell screen from reality, what happens when the ghost disappears? When the blogger dies? Leaves? Or just disappoints? Cigna's 2020 stats. 61% of Americans feel lonely. Read that again. 61%. Not a fringe group. The majority. In a country where everyone has 1,000 social media friends, where you can video call anyone, anywhere, anytime, where connection tech has peaked, most people feel isolated. Gen Z, the most technologically connected generation, is the most emotionally lonely in human history. And here's where it gets really interesting. Zygmunt Bauman, sociologist and author of Liquid Modernity, described the mechanism of this paradox. We've swapped heavy relationships for light ones. Heavy ones are real friends. They demand time, compromises, vulnerability. You can't just unfollow a friend if they say something awkward. You have to talk, explain, forgive. Light ones are parasocial ties. Blogger disappoints you. One click, he's gone. No explanations, no confrontation pain. Pure relationship hygiene. Sounds cynical. But it's not cynicism. It's adaptation. The modern world demands mobility. You switch cities, jobs, social circles every few years. Building deep bonds in those conditions is like building a stone house on sand. Expensive, pointless, painful. Parasociality isn't a pathology. It's a survival strategy in a world where real connections have become a luxury. You get the illusion of a tribe without the tribe's cost. You know the blogger, his habits, fears, jokes. You feel part of a community in the comments. You're not alone, technically. But, and here's the trap, this illusion holds only while the ghost exists, while he streams, while he uploads videos, while he answers chat questions, creating a sense of dialogue. What happens when the ghost vanishes? When the blogger announces the channel closing? When he gets into a scandal and you realize the person you knew never existed? When he just dies and you're left alone with pain you can't explain? Because how do you tell someone, I lost a friend, when that friend didn't know your name? How do you explain the emptiness after his death is real? December 2017. Seoul. 27-year-old Kim Jong-hyun from Shiny found dead in his apartment. Suicide. For millions worldwide, people who'd never met him, never spoken to him, never existed in his reality, this day became personal catastrophe. A 2020 study in Frontiers in Psychology captured the paradox that shatters the logic of fake relationships. 64% of fans described PTSD symptoms, insomnia, obsessive thoughts, unexplained crying fits. But what's truly strange, they grieved harder than over real acquaintances who died in the same period. Harder than classmates, harder than colleagues, sometimes harder than distant relatives. How is that possible? A 2017 experiment by psychologists Gavin and Davis gave an answer that sounds like a verdict on our intuition. Participants saw news of a celebrity's death and an unknown person's death. They measured cortisol levels, the stress hormone. Result? Identical. Your body doesn't discriminate. To your endocrine system, the death of a blogger you've watched for 3 years straight and the death of your hallway neighbor are the same magnitude. But there's an add-on. Guilt. I have no right to grieve. He's not my friend. I'm overreacting. This guilt doesn't just accompany the pain, it amplifies it. You suffer twice, from the loss and from shame over your loss. And there you are at night, scrolling old videos, reading comments from fellow bereaved fans, and you realize you can't tell anyone in real life because they won't understand, Because to them, it's just a blogger. To you, it's the voice that helped you fall asleep. The person who was there in your darkest days, who didn't know you existed, but existed for you. Ohio State University in 2018 described another phenomenon: parasocial breakup. The end of parasocial relationships. When the blogger gets in a scandal. When you learn something that shatters the image. When you're forced to unfollow. Symptoms: apathy, anger, obsessive thoughts about how I didn't see it, betrayal. The brain sees it as a friend's infidelity, a real friend's. And then the skeptic appears, inside you or outside. The one who says, maybe the solution's simple. Just turn off YouTube, find real friends, live a real life. Sounds reasonable, right? But it's like telling someone with depression, just be happy. Or someone with insomnia, just sleep. Parasociality isn't an illness, it's a symptom. The illness is loneliness. The illness is a world that demands you be mobile, flexible, productive. Read, uprooted. Read. Living in a city where you don't know your neighbors. Working remotely. Moving every 3 years. In this world, parasociality isn't a crutch. It's a prosthetic. That lets you function when real bonds are a luxury you lack time, energy, or courage for. And until this world changes, ghosts will remain the most reliable companions for millions. But what if the problem runs deeper? What if the very idea of real and fake relationships is an outdated map for a territory that no longer exists? And here's where it gets strangest. Jean Baudrillard, French philosopher, died in 2007, wrote Simulacra and Simulation. Core thesis: we live in a world where the map precedes the territory, where the copy exists before the original. A media personality is a simulacrum, a copy without an original. You don't know the real blogger. You know his performance, his edited, montaged, packaged version of himself for consumption. Even honest vlogs are a role. The role of the guy who does honest vlogs. But here's the paradox. Your grief for this simulacrum is utterly real. Your brain doesn't discriminate. To neurons, there's no difference between I know the image and I know the person. Emotional attachment forms not to reality, to perception. And here's a question that breaks skeptics' logic. What does real friend even mean? The friend you see once a year at a reunion, is he real? Or the blogger you see every day, whose voice rides with you on the subway, on runs, before bed? Who's closer? Who's more real? Baudrillard said, the territory no longer exists. Only the map remains. We live in a world of pure images, where the line between real and simulated has blurred away. Maybe the problem isn't that parasociality is fake. Maybe the problem is we still cling to the idea of real, like a life preserver in an ocean with no shore. Your childhood friend, who you haven't talked to in 10 years but will always be like a brother. Is that not a simulacrum? Not a ghost of your past selves? The co-worker you chat with at the water cooler, but don't know his kids' names. Is that deep? We live in a world of ghosts. Always have. Just before, ghosts were made of memory and distance. Now they're made of pixels and recommendation algorithms. The difference isn't in the bond's nature. It's in the technology producing it. And here's what's truly scary. If simulacrum and original are indistinguishable to the brain, does that mean all our relationships were always simulations? That we always loved not people, but images of people in our heads? That friendship was always a one-sided narrative we tell ourselves about the other? And if that's true, maybe the truth is we never truly knew each other. That all our relationships are narratives we tell ourselves about people. Versions, interpretations, projections of our hopes onto strangers' faces. And if so, parasociality isn't an anomaly. It's honesty. The blogger on screen at least doesn't pretend to know you. He doesn't promise reciprocity. He just exists. And you decide what role he plays in your story. Friend, mentor, voice to fall asleep to. It's a deal without illusions, and in that, strange purity. But here's what I realized digging into these studies, fan letters, comments under so long nerds. Parasociality isn't weakness. It's proof of our desperate animal need for connection. We seek tribe everywhere, in comments, in stream chats, in shared grief for someone we never met. We cling to any hint we're not alone. And that's the most human thing in us. If you cried when Chester Bennington died, when Technoblade recorded his last video, when your favorite podcaster announced the show's end, your grief is legitimate. Don't let anyone devalue it with, "He's not your friend." To your brain, he was. To your neural net, your evenings, your rituals, he was part of the tribe. And his loss is a real hole in the fabric of your reality. But, and this is an important but, ghosts can't hug you when you're on the floor at 3 a.m. and can't breathe. They won't bring soup when you're sick. They won't say, "I'm proud of you," and mean your specific struggle, your specific win. Parasociality is a crutch, sometimes necessary, sometimes life-saving, but it's not a foundation. Sociologist Nick Kuldry said, "Parasociality isn't pathology. It's adaptation to a world where real bonds have become too expensive." And he's right. In a world demanding mobility, flexibility, productivity, uprooted from roots, family, places where we're known, parasociality isn't a bug. It's a survival feature. Maybe in the future we'll learn to build real tribes in digital space, where reciprocity is possible, where bonds don't depend on geography. Or we'll return to the real, to neighbors, to local communities. Or maybe the line between real and simulacrum will erase completely, and we won't care. We'll accept all relationships as performance, and that'll be fine. I don't know. For now, we live in a transitional era, the era of friendship with ghosts, the era where you can feel closer to someone on screen than the neighbor through the wall. And in that, its own strange, sad, piercing beauty. Because in the end, we're all seeking the same thing. A voice in the dark that says, "You're not alone." And if that voice comes through pixels, through algorithms, through one-way channels, maybe it still counts. Maybe it's all we have. And maybe that's enough to keep going.